And I have a pretty good hunch that my brother has not been to every rocket launch that ever took place. So how would my brother or anyone be able to provide evidence for that claim, that no rockets have ever made it past the firmament? You can't. You just have to believe it. Welcome, everyone, to my YouTube channel called It Ain't Flat Bro. A special shout out and welcome to my brother, though he's probably not watching. He has a history of not watching things that I sent him. Now, if you missed my introduction video, there's only been one before this one, and it kind of gave an overview and kind of described what's going on and why this whole journey took place to begin with. So if you haven't seen that, you could probably go back and watch it and get a little bit more insight. But barring that, let's get to the main topic, which is the firmament and what the Bible says or doesn't say about it. And just one reminder, as I mentioned in the first video, please keep your comments to the firmament and what the Bible says about it. I don't want to have stray comments about all kinds of other things like, well, but what about this? So we're just going to keep it to the firmament and what the Bible says about it. And if there are any comments that do stray away from that, I'm just going to delete them, as I mentioned before. Now, most flat earthers believe that, of course, the earth is flat and some kind of a disk that doesn't move, and we'll cover that in another video. And they believe that it's covered by this big, hard, either glass-like or crystalline-like dome. So it means the earth looks something like a snow globe, completely enclosed under a hard shell. Now, the word firmament is first mentioned in the Bible in Genesis chapter 1, verses 6 and 7 during the creation account. And it says, "And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so." It's kind of a mystery, but not a total mystery, as to how the firmament has come to be equated with the dome. Now, as you'll see if you keep watching, there's no description whatsoever in the Bible of the firmament's makeup or its composition or its shape. You can't find that anywhere. Firmament is mentioned 17 times in the Bible, and not one of those verses that mention it tell us the physical characteristics of it. Verse 7 that you saw a little bit ago does say that the firmament divides waters from other waters, but see, that's only talking about what the firmament does and not what the firmament's made of. Now, I'm going to show you a few of my brother's Facebook posts, and these have to do specifically with the firmament. So here is the first one. It says, "The Bible revealed that the earth is flat and that we live under a dome, which is called the firmament. Nowhere in the Bible does it describe the earth as a globe." To be clear, it doesn't appear my brother actually came up with this statement because it's listed under the name of a Facebook group. However, my brother did post it, so I can only assume that he agrees with its message. Now, the first statement, all I'll say to any flat earther is prove it. Show me anything from the Bible which tells us specifically about the firmament that it is a dome. Because it's really easy to make the claim that the Bible revealed that we live under a dome. So, again, prove it. Show me where the firmament means dome. And remember, posting a bunch of memes on unrelated topics is going to get you nowhere. Because all it would simply prove is that you have no answer related to this topic that we're talking about. Now, to the second statement where he says nowhere in the Bible does it talk about the earth being a globe, I totally agree. 100%. But it is also absolutely true, you'll find out if you keep watching, that nowhere in the Bible is the earth described as flat or as a dome-covered disc, no matter how much any flurf wishes it did or says it did. Now, do you remember eisegesis from the first video? Yeah, let's not go there because that's a no-no. And let's just forget about my brother's smug remark about the eighth day of creation. I didn't read it off then, but it said, I must have missed the eighth day of creation when God tilted the earth, spun it, and tossed it into orbit around the sun. Yeah, God did not share every single detail of everything he ever did with mankind. I mean, if he had, the Bible would be huge. It'd be too big to pick up, probably too big to hold in a building. So it's just reckless to say that just because God didn't mention something, it didn't happen. For example, the Bible doesn't say anything specific about God creating hurricanes and tornadoes, or creating the aurora borealis, or the jet streams, or tsunamis, but yet they all exist. My retort would simply be, I must have missed the eighth day of creation where God made a hard dome and placed it over the earth. All right, here's another slide. Nothing gets through the firmament because that's how God designed it. What? Because my brother says so? Really? As I just mentioned, there's nothing in the Bible describing how God designed it. There's just that one verse that says it devised waters, but you'll hear more about that in a little bit. No rockets have ever made it past the firmament. Again, why? Because my brother said so? And how would he even know? And I have a pretty good hunch that my brother has not been to every rocket launch that ever took place. So how would my brother or anyone be able to provide evidence for that claim, that no rockets have ever made it past the firmament? You can't. You just have to believe it. And for that matter, can my brother or anyone else show any concrete, tangible proof of this dome? And no, I don't mean a meme about rainbows not being able to make it to space because they can't get through the dome or whatever. That's not tangible proof of a dome. Besides, rainbows are caused by the refraction of light at a low angle through water droplets. And the rainbow curves because of the angle that the water droplets reflect the different colors of light. So, yeah, a rainbow meme is not tangible proof of a dome. Well, I thought you'd never ask. So let's take a look at a dictionary of the Bible, also known as a concordance. Now, as I said in the first video, I'm using the Strong's Concordance, but any concordance will do. So first I went to the front section, which is the English dictionary of all words in the Bible. Now, this particular concordance is referencing the King James translation, but you can get them in other translations too. So I looked up the word firmament, and next to the word is a number. In this case, the number is 7549. Now, since the word firmament only appears in the Old Testament, I turned to the Hebrew section of the concordance instead of the Greek section, which is for New Testament words, and I found the definition. Well, first, let's go to the first slide. So the first one is what I talked about before. I turned to the dictionary part, and I looked up the word firmament. So there you can see it in bold letters, and I've enclosed all the references to the word within a white box. So there's a number in brackets beside the word, and that's the number of times that it's found in Scripture. In this case, 17. Now, directly below the word are snippets of the verses, and they each have an italicized F to represent the word. That just saves some space. Now, the second column lists the Bible, book, chapter, and verse of each instance. And then finally, enclosed in the orange box is the reference number for the word for each instance of the word's use. Now, take note that all 17 instances of the word firmament are the same number, 7549. For comparison, look at the word right above that. Now, I didn't capture the whole thing because I wasn't intending to, but I did accidentally catch the last three instances of the word firm, which came before firmament. And in those, you can see that there are three different numbers in the right column. Now, this simply means there are three different meanings for that word in those verses. It would be similar to our word right, R-I-G-H-T. That word can mean opposed to left. It can mean lawful or honest or fair, like, you did the right thing. It can mean correct. You got the right answer. Or it could mean like an inherited privilege, like a right to a speedy trial or right to life. Now let's get back to the word firmament. We're interested in the definition of the word referenced by 7549. So next, we turn to the section of the concordance that contains the word definitions. And here's that page for the word firmament. Now you can see the number 7549 in the very top left. I enclosed it in a black box to make it a little bit more visible. Now the Hebrew word for the firmament is rakia. It's pronounced up there just like in any other dictionary. It is defined as an expanse, the visible arch of the sky. And then below that, it reads, rakia means that which is fixed and steadfast. Now check this next part out. I put it in green to set it apart. Rakia means that which is fixed and steadfast rather than that which is solid. In red highlight, it points out below that the word comes from 7554, which means spread out. And then right below that, it says, the firmament then is that which is spread or stretched out, hence an expanse. Thus it is extended and fixed, or fixed space. Now, remember, the choice to use this word is coming from God through Moses, a Hebrew who knew the Hebrew language. Now, with all that Moses had on his plate, freeing Israel from Egypt and, getting water from rocks and pleading with God not to destroy Israel and writing the Bible, et cetera, et cetera. I'm fairly sure he was not colluding with NASA to fake us all out by saying that rakia means an expanse because, the Hebrew word for firmament means an expanse. It just does. But you might say, well, hold on there, partner. Just a darn tootin' minute now. Genesis 1:7 says that it divides the waters from the waters. Well, if it ain't solid, how's it dividing them waters? Now, to that, I would say two things, only not with an accent, because that was somebody else talking to me. The first thing I would say is that my understanding has always been that the waters above refer to clouds and vapor in the sky, waters above the sky, so to speak, while the waters below refer to rivers and lakes and oceans and that sort of thing. However, I just read a very, 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 very good essay, and this essay has actually changed my view on that. It talks about what the meaning of the waters above actually mean, and it'll blow your mind. It's way too much to describe in this video because the essay itself took me 45 minutes to an hour to get through, because I was looking at things and looking up things as I went, but it's pretty lengthy. However, it's extremely thorough, and it was very much worth it. The author goes into a lot of depth about rakia and what it does mean and what it doesn't mean, and he includes what seemed like 100 different commentaries on the subject. No, it wasn't actually 100, but I highly recommend that you read through it, and I've linked that article in the description down below. Now, I said I'd say two things about the waters above and the waters below. The second thing is, it says it divides them, right? And, the guy said, well, if it ain't hard, how's it dividing them waters? Well, doesn't a large chasm divide one side of itself from the other side? Doesn't strife divide a family? Doesn't a border divide one country from another? Doesn't politics divide a population? Doesn't something else? Painted lines divide a highway. So something doesn't have to be physically hard or solid to be able to separate something. Suffice it to say, we know by what we just read in the concordance, if we're being honest, that the word firmament does not mean something solid. It means an expanse. Now, you can choose to keep saying otherwise, but then you have to ask yourself, are you more interested in the truth, or are you more interested in being right? Now, here's another case in point. Also included in this post that my brother recently made, it was the one about the rainbow. There was more rambling about how the word firmament means dome. And he used this verse from Job 37. It was verse 18. And this verse reads, "Hast thou with him spread out the sky, which is strong and as a molten looking glass?" Now, the implication here is that the sky is hard because the verse says molten looking glass. Once again, there was no verse study that was done. And this verse, which seemed to support the flat earth belief, was posted without a single care as to whether the verse actually meant what he said it meant. Even if you take this verse literally, which it is not meant to be taken, by the way, it doesn't say that the sky is a molten looking glass, but it merely says it is like a molten looking glass. And this was just a comparison showing the strength of the sky's brightness. Also, the Hebrew word for sky is not rakia in Job 37:18. If you look it up in the concordance, it is the word shakak, S-H-A-C-H-A-Q. So we'll just go with shakak for now, but that word means a mist or vapor. So this verse is not even talking about the firmament. It's a totally different word. So, given that we know that the firmament is an expanse and not something solid, there is nothing in this Job 37:18 which affirms that the sky is an actual looking glass or that it is physically hard. I have a hunch where the dome idea came from, or at least a hunch of how it was propagated. I'm going to show you a video here from a YouTube channel named Flat Out Truth, and that is hosted by a fella named Terry R. Eicher, E-I-C-H-E-R. Now, my brother referenced this video early on as proof of a dome. I don't recall if he sent it to me personally or if I just saw it on his Facebook page, but it could be one, the other, or both. Now, Terry R. Eicher reads from an encyclopedia which mentions the word dome. He thinks he's talking about a dome that covers the earth. He thinks that's what the encyclopedia is talking about, is a dome that covers the earth from, end to end. Here's the video, and I will have to stop a few times to add some comments, but enjoy this video by Terry R. Eicher.
Okay, you guys remember how I showed you the maps that were here on Earth before 1958, before the governments took them out? And I'm going to show you the Encyclopedia Britannicas in the public libraries before 1958. Here's Volume 2 out of the alphabet A.
Okay, here's the first thing. He says Encyclopedia Britannica, and he'll say that multiple times, as you'll soon see. But what do you see there? I see Encyclopedia Americana. All right, does this mean that he's totally wrong about everything? Well, of course not. But it doesn't give him too good a start when he doesn't even realize what encyclopedia he's reading from. And I think I know why this happened too, is that I've heard other flat earthers talk about the Encyclopedia Britannica saying that everything was scrubbed, after 1958. And so I think he's just heard that so much that that's just what he's saying, but he's not even reading the words that are right in front of him.
We're going to flip to the Antarctica, and this is from 1958, as you can see. Now, we're going to flip to the Antarctica.
Okay, that's another thing. Now, both things I'm going to say here are kind of trivial. He keeps saying the Antarctica. Well, let's go to the other one first. Antarctica is the correct pronunciation. There's two hard C's in there, but I will give him that. I'll give anybody that because it is hard to say both of those hard C's. Antarctica. So we all kind of just say Antarctica. We leave that first hard C out. But the other thing is, that just kind of bugs me. Antarctica is a continent, just like North America or South America or Australia or Africa. Or, there's others, but I'm not naming them all. But the point is, Europe and Asia, okay, if you want. But we don't say the Africa or the Australia or the South America or the Europe. We just say the name of the continent. So why on Earth, either flat or spherical, would the word "the" need to be put on it? I think it's because maybe he's thinking of a place like the North Pole, something that's not a continent. Just bugs me, that's all. Let's continue.
And see what the Encyclopedia Britannica from 1958, before the Antarctic Treaty, says is there. Now, you won't find this in the new encyclopedias because the government's banned them. But what I want you to notice right here is, notice how it says, the flights proved inland areas to be featureless in character with a dome 13,000 feet high.
Now remember, he thinks the encyclopedia is talking about a dome over the earth. We're going to cover this.
At about latitude 80 degrees south, longitude 90 degrees east. Take a really, really close look at that. Now I'm going to zoom it in for you. When they returned to New Zealand, these flights proved the inland areas to be featureless in character with a dome 13,000 feet high at about latitude 80 degrees south, longitude 90 degrees east. Now, if this doesn't make sense to you, let me show you with an image of what a flat earth map would look like now.
All right, we got to stop here. He says, here's an image of what a flat earth would look like. And that's an accurate statement because nobody knows. There has been no photo of this flat earth and dome. There are actually several different maps. I've seen one similar to this, but with a steeper glass dome over it. I've seen some where the disc part is actually indented down in. It's almost like a roulette wheel. I've seen maps that have pillars under them or pylons. I've seen others that don't. They can't even agree on which map is the right one. Some flat earthers don't even think there is a dome. So you have to keep that in mind. This is just somebody's artistic rendition of what they think a flat earth dome would look like, and he correctly said that.
This is what a latitude 80 degrees south would look like on a flat earth map. As you can see, the dome comes down closer to you over the wall, which would be about 13,000 feet.
Okay, now he draws a red arrow on there, and he says, this is where 13,000 feet would be. I don't see any scale. I don't see any legend. I don't see any gradients. I don't see any, arc minutes or anything marked on this map. You got to keep in mind there are 8.1 billion people in that disk, so we're probably about the size of electrons, compared to the whole picture. And I would argue that 13,000 feet would be a whole heck of a lot lower than where the end of that arrow is. Plus, you'll see here in just a second that he's going to say that the middle of that dome is almost 400,000 feet. Well, if you take the tip of that red arrow and go across, that's about halfway up. So if 13,000 feet is halfway up, then the top of the dome would be about 26,000 feet. The other thing is the way he says it. He goes, it's almost as if it's like we all know this, because he says, and here's where it would be closer to the edge of the dome, which would be about 13,000 feet. Just makes it sound like we all should know this. Keep in mind, though, this is just an arbitrary arrow, and he's telling you that this would be about where 13,000 feet is. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Now, if you go back out into the center of the Earth, or the North Pole, and try to go up to the firmament with a little bit of calculation, it's going to show that it's about 385,500.
That is my all-time favorite thing that he has said in this video. He says, okay, let's go up to the top. And he says, with a little bit of calculation. Well, if you're making a claim about something that's physical, that's tangible, why don't you show us that calculation, Terry R. Eicher? There's got to be some numbers. If you've got, this point where 13,000 feet is, why don't you show us that little bit of calculation? I can tell you exactly why he doesn't show any calculation. And it's because he has no idea. You can't just draw on a cartoon flat earth and not be able to prove it. So anyway, the whole with a little bit of calculation absolutely cracks me up.
Feet away. It's really, really simple, folks.
It's really, really simple, folks. I make crap up and I draw arrows on cartoons.
Now, if you're not familiar with any of this at all, and you're just now new to all this, you could say, well, this guy is crazy. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Oh boy, I can't officially vouch for how crazy this guy is, but I'd be willing to bet he's pegging the meter. But I can vouch for the fact, as I just mentioned a little bit ago, he has no idea what he's talking about.
But what you got to ask yourself is, why do all the maps before 1958 show a flat Earth with the ice wall around it and a firmament, a dome?
They don't, and I've got proof of that.
And why does the encyclopedia tell you that there's a dome there, and it gives you the exact height at a certain latitude and longitude?
Because it's not talking about a dome over the Earth, it's talking about a different kind of dome, which I am very soon going to explain.
Well, the reason is because in 1958, that's when all governments and all nations of the world signed the UN treaty to ban all civilians from going to the Antarctica.
Wrong answer, Terry R. Eicher. All nations and all governments of the Earth did no such thing. The Antarctic Treaty was signed not in 1958, as you say, but it was December 1st of 1959, and it was signed by 12 countries. 12, not all nations and all governments. The 12 countries are Australia, Argentina, Belgium, Chile, France, Japan, New Zealand, Norway, South Africa, Soviet Union, United Kingdom, United States. Practically in alphabetical order. And that was it. I've linked the Antarctic Treaty down in the description, and you can read it. It's not a long read. It's only about 15 pages or so. There are 14 articles, and not one of them mentions anything about banning civilians. Anyway, you can go read that, but let's continue with this video.
And NASA came in and erased everything, just like they're erasing everything today. So again, ask yourself, if all this existed before 1958, why doesn't it exist now? How come it all of a sudden was erased and just disappeared out of your history books, out of your encyclopedias, out of your libraries? Wake up, people. Wake up.
Wake up, people. Wake up. That's got to be where my brother gets that. He says that. In fact, he just said it in this most recent post that I keep referring to. He said, you globies got to wake up. Okay, now there is so much to say about the information presented in this video. I mean, so much more than I've already said. Now, as far as his claim of the Antarctic Treaty keeping people from going there, Article 1 actually prohibits military measures of any kind. So there goes the claim that you'll be met by people with guns that will turn you away. Article 3, I think it is, 2 or 3, is all about making sure that all scientific information found by any country is shared with all the other countries that take part in the treaty. Another article right after that, 4 or 5 maybe, prohibits nuclear weapons testing. And you can read this all for yourself. Contrary to these flat earthers' sage advice to do your own research, they all fail to do the very thing that they say you should do. And this video by Terry R. Eicher shows us several examples of that. But folks, here's the topper of all the toppers. I found another YouTube video of a woman covering this same article from the same 1958 Encyclopedia Americana. Now, the quality of the video was horrible, and she even said, this is my first video, so, you know, can give her that. But I was able to get a still frame from it. She was turning the pages the same way Terry R. Eicher was turning the pages. I know that because I saw a picture of an ant, big enlarged picture of an ant, and I saw that in both his video and in her video. But she turned to at least one more page that Terry R. Eicher conveniently omitted, and it was a map of Antarctica that showed it on a globe. I kid you not. Here it is for your viewing pleasure. Look at that. That's from 1958 Encyclopedia Americana, and you see the sea up to the left side. If you want to just Google that, I think it's called the Weddell Sea, something like that. You can just Google Maps that, and it'll take you right there and show you that it's Antarctica, if you're not convinced by that map. So his exact quote was, "What you've got to ask yourself is, why do all the maps before 1958 show a flat Earth with the ice wall around it?" Now, I think he's also twice confused. I think he meant to say, why do all the maps through 1958 show all that? And the reason I say that is because if the 1958 book he's showing you says there's an ice wall and a dome, then I wouldn't think the same book would include a globe map on an adjacent page, especially when he and my brother both claim that the data wasn't scrubbed from the encyclopedias until the 1959 editions. So this guy's own statement contradicts the pages of the very book he's reading from. However, it appears that Terry R. Eicher isn't the only one who hasn't done his research. In the very same recent post that I have been referring to, my brother cites the very video you just watched from Terry R. Eicher. He claims that they're hiding the firmament. Let's see, I think I have that one. It's basically just saying that they're hiding the firmament, and that the Antarctic Treaty keeps people from going beyond the 60th parallel. And then right after that, he makes the claim that the encyclopedia says there's a dome 13,000 feet high at the 80th parallel. So what is the dome that this guy, Terry R. Eicher, keeps referring to? Okay, well, the encyclopedia was referring to what are called ice domes. And here's the definition of an ice dome. An ice dome is one of many forms a glacier can take. It is an upright ice surface in the higher altitude portions of an ice cap or an ice sheet. There are many such features found on icy terrain, and Antarctica is no exception. And then there at the bottom, you can see the text from the Encyclopedia Americana, not Britannica. At least the person that wrote that was able to cite the proper source. In some further reading that I did, again in actual libraries with actual books, I learned a few things. First, if you read the full article in the encyclopedia, you'll learn that the flights referred to were exploratory flights from New Zealand. They came in and they flew around and looked at stuff. I think it was like 4 days that they did that. They flew around and did all their exploring, and then they flew back to New Zealand to report their findings. And this is where Terry R. Eicher starts reading. He says these flights, he's talking about the exploratory flights from New Zealand, claimed the inland areas to be featureless in character with a dome 13,000 feet high. Now, the other thing I learned was about how the ice domes form. They're called domes because of their shape. They're formed by different freezing rates of ice at different levels. Now, I honestly don't remember if it's the top or the bottom layers that freeze faster, but it's something like this. I'll just assume that the top ones freeze faster because the bottom ones, there's more insulation, I guess. So the ice closer to the surface freezes, and it freezes faster than the ice that's down below. So then when the deep ice finally freezes, it pushes up on the already frozen surface ice, causing it to hump out. I mean, you know what happens if you freeze ice, it expands, right? So as it expands, it pushes this top ice out, and it makes this big jutting thing. Sometimes it maybe looks more like a dome probably early on, but then later it just looks like this big thing jutting out. But they call them ice domes. So the more it happens, the bigger the hump or the projection becomes. So that's the dome that was being talked about in the encyclopedia. That's what these New Zealand exploratory flights were referring to. Ice domes, not some dome over the earth. And here's a point to really, really consider. Do you think that explorers flying over Antarctica actually could have seen an entire dome that was covering the earth? I mean, think of how wide the earth is. I don't remember what they claim to be the diameter of that circle disk that they call the earth, but it's, several thousands of miles for sure. Well, if they're in this little teeny place in that huge area that, again, holds 8.1 billion people and all the oceans and everything, they're going to be pretty small. If it covered the whole earth, this dome would be huge. So at best, these explorers would have said that they saw some maybe large wall towering high into the sky. I mean, that would make sense. The thing would have towered high enough to be out of their sight. Now, could they have seen any curvature of this wall way high up that would make them think that this was a dome they were looking at? Remember how infinitesimally small they're going to be compared to this huge dome that covers the entire surface of the Earth. What would have made them think it was a dome? Could they have seen curvature up there? No. Could we look up right now and see some surface that appears to curve away from us as a dome would curve? Other than the sky or the vast expanse, like we talked about, Rakia, other than that, no. I mean, I see the sky absolutely arching above me, but I don't see any hard glass dome. I've never seen it. Have you? So these explorers, they would have reported a wall, not a dome. They were too small, and a dome would have had to be so incredibly large in comparison. They would never have been able to see enough of it to make them think it was a dome. Here's a map of the ice domes in Antarctica. Now, I don't know if it includes every last one, but I personally counted upwards of 50 on there. Now, they're named similarly to the way we name lakes. Like I can see Dome Argus, the Holman Dome, the Venture Dome, etc. Anyway, I don't know exactly, again, where Flurfs initially equated firmament with a dome, but this video by Terry R. Eicher could certainly have had something to do with it. They all parrot the same information, so again, this is not surprising. All right, so that'll wrap up this video. I hope it's been informative, and please remember to check all the links in the description that I said I've linked there. The next video is going to continue to try to answer the question of, does the Bible prove the shape of the earth? Discussing whether or not the earth moves. Flat earthers, of course, have taken some verses out of context, as they did for the firmament. And again, they say that they support the flat earth idea that the earth is motionless. I will show you what the Bible says and what it doesn't say about the physical motion of the earth. Now, one other thing, this is going to sound like probably every other YouTube video, but I'm not looking at getting thousands of views or subscribers or anything like that. I might not get hundreds. I probably won't even get tens. I mean, if I even get 10, it doesn't matter because that's not the point. But I'm going to say, if you want to be notified when another video comes out, because I'm not always able to get them out bing, bang, boom, all in a row to be able to reference them in one video saying the next one's out there if you want it. Won't always be able to do that. So if you want to be notified when a new one is posted, just subscribe to the channel. And again, if you want to comment, please comment, but just make sure the comments have to do with the topic of the firmament and what the Bible says about it. We can talk about other things later in future videos. So with that, I hope to see you in the next one or several.